As human beings, we're quite complicated. We often spend a lot of our time worrying about what others think of us. At the same time, we sometimes feel like nobody really cares about us. This can be quite confusing and stressful. Think about all the times you've worried about a conversation you had. Maybe you wondered if you said the right thing, if someone liked you, or if others cared about you or thought badly of you. These worries can take up a lot of our thoughts. Many of us have insecurities. We might be scared that people will reject us. We worry that we're not smart enough, not good-looking enough, not charming enough, not rich enough, not funny enough, or just not good enough in general. We think that others see all our flaws and judge us harshly, just like we sometimes judge ourselves. But here's a key point: all these worries are based on a false belief. We assume that other people are paying a lot of attention to us, but that's not really true. And here's the truth that can be really freeing: no one cares about you in the way you might think. This might sound harsh at first, but it's actually good news. Why? Because it means you don't have to be so worried about what others think of you. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves and their own lives. They have their own worries and insecurities. Let's consider how this plays out in everyday life. Think about your daily experiences and interactions. For example, when you have a conversation with a coworker and it feels a bit awkward, what do you usually think about afterward? Most likely you're thinking about your own behavior, how you acted, what you said, and how you might have seemed awkward. You're probably not spending much time thinking about how your coworker acted unless it directly affects you. Now let's flip that situation. Your coworker is likely doing the same thing. They're probably thinking about their own actions and words, wondering if they were awkward in the conversation. They're not focusing on you, but on themselves. The main point here is that everyone is mostly focused on themselves, so much so that they don't really pay much attention to what others are doing or how they're behaving. This includes those small, awkward moments you might have, like feeling uncomfortable during a lunch conversation. We often think that others are closely observing and judging us, but in reality, they're too occupied with their own thoughts and concerns. We tend to believe that we're separate individual entities and that others are constantly evaluating our flaws, mistakes, and shortcomings. However, the truth is most people are not scrutinizing us as much as we think. In fact, we are often our own harshest critics. We see our flaws more clearly than anyone else does. Sure, there might be an exception like a particularly critical coworker, but generally, people are not as focused on our faults as we are. The idea here also touches on the concept of selfishness in human nature. It suggests that even when we do things that seem selfless, like helping others, there's still an element of selfishness involved. This doesn't mean it's bad, it's just the way we are wired. When we do something nice for someone, we often feel good about ourselves. This feeling, the satisfaction or happiness we get from helping, is a kind of selfish benefit. The idea is that if helping someone makes you feel good, and they also feel good being helped, it creates a situation where everyone benefits. It's a win-win scenario when both sides gain something positive from an interaction. This kind of mutual benefit is a healthy foundation for any relationship or interaction. Then comes the honest admission we're all imperfect. We all have our flaws and shortcomings, and that's perfectly normal. It's a call to be more accepting of ourselves and others, acknowledging our imperfections without overly criticizing them. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek approval and acceptance from those around us. This conditioning is so strong that it can feel like a kind of psychological drug. When we receive approval, be it in the form of praise, applause, or appreciation, it triggers a positive emotional response in us, much like an endorphin rush. This feeling is so pleasing that we naturally want more of it. As children, when our parents or teachers praise us, we feel good. This good feeling becomes something we start to seek out constantly. We begin to adapt our behavior to continue receiving approval, which can involve jumping through various metaphorical hoops. The problem with this is that it often comes with an underlying fear, the fear of not getting the approval we seek, and even worse, facing rejection. Instead, this cycle of seeking approval and fearing rejection is essentially a representation of our worries about what others think of us and whether they care about us. When we do something that we think will please others and it does, we feel validated. But when we don't receive the approval we're seeking, we experience negative emotions. These can feel like withdrawal symptoms, as if we're missing something vital for our emotional well-being. To make matters more complicated, if we experience rejection, it can feel like a severe blow. Not only are we not getting the positive reinforcement we crave, but we're also facing negative feedback, which can be deeply painful. To break free from this cycle, the solution involves a conscious effort to detach ourselves from this need for approval. The process begins with self-awareness. By observing our desire for approval without reacting to it, we start to understand its nature. This non-reactive observation is powerful. It's about noticing how much of our thoughts and actions are driven by the need to be liked and approved by others. For many, realizing the extent of this can indeed be quite shocking. The next step is to consciously choose not to act on the impulse to seek approval. This is where it gets challenging because these impulses are deeply ingrained. But the key here is to understand that the approval we might gain by acting on these impulses is often not genuine. It's more a response to our visible neediness than a true appreciation of who we are. Adopting the mindset that no one cares about you is not about believing this as a literal truth, but rather using it as a tool to free oneself from the incessant need for external validation. This detachment doesn't mean becoming indifferent to others, but liberating oneself from the dependence on their approval. The ultimate reward of this process is freedom and authenticity. Freed from the need for approval, you no longer feel compelled to conform to others' expectations or standards. Your actions and choices become more authentic, reflecting your true self rather than a version shaped by the desire to please others. This authenticity allows you to live life on your own terms, outside the confines of the box created by societal expectations. This journey towards freedom and authenticity is not easy. It requires introspection, awareness, and a willingness to face discomfort. But the outcome is a life lived with a sense of genuine self-expression and inner peace, unburdened by the constant search for approval. I really hope you find something special in this video that speaks to your heart. If it does, I'd be so grateful if you could share it with your friends. And don't forget to click the like button and comment. It truly helps us reach more people. Wishing you an absolutely wonderful day ahead.